look at some common fraud tactics. First, phishing. So phishing is when cyber attackers trick people into giving them their personal information, like passwords or credit card numbers. They do this by pretending to be trustworthy sources such as notable companies like UPS or Netflix or other popular websites by sending messages that look really real. These messages often ask you to click on a link, download a file, or provide your information. However, if you do what they ask, they can use your information to steal your money, take over your account, and commit other kinds of fraud. So it's important to be careful and not trust just any message you receive, especially if it asks for sensitive information. A fun fact I wanted to call out is the term phishing actually comes from the word fishing, F-I-S-H-I-N-G, where attackers cast their fraudulent messages like bait, hoping to lure unsuspecting users into taking malicious action. What's also interesting to know is that smishing and vishing are also a concept of phishing. Smishing refers to SMS or text, and vishing refers to phone calls, robocalls, or voicemails. Here, you'll notice a lot of these images contain different forms of phishing. You'll see it come through as really believable emails or sketchy text messages. It's important to always make sure you're familiar with who the links or messages may be coming from before clicking on anything. Double check the sender's email address, URL, or phone number to ensure they're legit. Always be skeptical of unsolicited messages and unexpected requests for personal information. Once clicked or interacted with these fraudsters long enough, the damage could potentially be irreversible if the fraudster ends up stealing your personal information. The second type of ATO fraud tactic I'd like to address is social engineering. Social engineering attacks are another term used to describe phishing. It's a method used by attackers to manipulate and deceive people into doing something they normally wouldn't do or revealing sensitive information. Instead of relying on technical vulnerabilities like traditional phishing, social engineering exploits human psychology and tendencies such as trust, helpfulness, or curiosity. It involves creating convincing scenarios, impersonating trusted individuals or organizations, and using psychological tactics to gain the victim's confidence. The goal is to manipulate people into divulging confidential data, granting access to systems, or carrying out actions that can be exploited for malicious purposes. In essence, social engineering is the art of manipulating human behavior to exploit security weaknesses. You'll notice in the news that social engineering can be seen to be sprawling on countless different corners of the internet. Whether it's in Microsoft Teams or automation tools, it has a damaging set of effects. This fraud tactic is known to come in various forms and can target individuals, businesses, and even governments. Staying informed about these incidents through news reports can help raise awareness and encourage individuals and organizations to be more vigilant in protecting themselves against such attacks. Something that we don't often think about is how often we may willingly end up sharing personal information online. We'll post our vacations, where we go to eat, the names of our loved ones. In fact, some studies have shown that by 2030, nearly 2/3 of identity fraud cases affecting a young generation will have resulted from sharenting, a word now being used to describe the common practice of parents sharing photos or videos of their children on social media. So oftentimes, it's not always a fraudster stealing from you. It can just be us sharing things online where fraudsters find that information to exploit. The third form of fraud tactic I'd like to touch on is SIM swaps and port out fraud. This is where a person can get mobile carriers to get a new SIM card or port a phone number to a different phone carrier or different phone number. SIM swap attacks normally begin with an old-fashioned phishing scam. Email phishing is still surprisingly common, but hackers also use fake login pages, apps loaded with spyware, fake ads, and malicious attachments to gain access to your accounts. Once they have that, all it takes is knowledge of your phone number and some personal data to execute that SIM swap attack. It's important to note that phishing isn't the only way to start a SIM swap attack. Hackers can get your info from leaked social engineering, leaked data, or even physically lift it from your devices. So how does a SIM swap actually work? It usually happens in 4 broad steps. First, the fraudster gathers confidential information like user credentials. Then the fraudster calls phone service providers and impersonates the victim, Next, the fraudster is able to dupe the phone carrier into switching victims' phone numbers onto a new phone. And thus, a fraudster has successfully executed a SIM swap. The attacker can use that to carry out fraudulent acts like bypassing security measures such as SMS-based verification and access your accounts, steal personal information, or even carry out financial fraud. Now, this also means that they can gain unauthorized access to online banking accounts, social media profiles, email accounts, and other sensitive platforms. In addition to financial loss, victims may also suffer reputational damage and emotional distress, meaning the damage done can often be irreversible. SIM swap fraud in the news can be seen all over. With the widespread use of mobile phones and our growing reliance on them for communication, banking, and various online services, criminals have found a new opportunity to exploit unsuspecting individuals. The financial losses resulting from SIM swap fraud are staggering, often reaching into the tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. The last fraud tactic I'd like to discuss is number recycling. Number recycling may not necessarily be malicious, but it definitely proves to be a challenge because it can be something that's used in combination with phishing. An interesting thing to note is a study was performed by a group of Princeton University researchers who investigated the potential security and privacy risks of a recycled phone number. They found number recycling enables malicious actors to perform upwards of 8 different attacks. By cycling through available phone numbers on a carrier's online change form, a malicious actor can specifically target previous owners' PII and hijack accounts using text-based password recovery. They can also use recycled phone numbers to obtain previous owners' passwords from data leaks and then use those passwords to hijack accounts. The threat of number recycling arises when a user abandons their old phone number for a new one. This usually happens when a person purchases a new mobile device and decides to go with the new number as well. The issue here is that the customer never owned the mobile phone number, they just leased it. Many carriers can decide to transfer the customer's old mobile phone number to another one of their customers whenever they want. Even if that means that the new owner could get text messages, calls, and other phone-based communication for the previous owner. Attackers are able to hone in on this vulnerability and understand how useful recycled phone numbers can be. They'll try to misuse phone number carriers' websites in order to find recycled phone numbers that are up for grabs. They can hoard those numbers to steal victims' PII, intercept OTPs, and perform phishing attacks, and more.